Hello, my name is Lo, and this is a video about the time that I spent in New York City. So I've been to New York City plenty of times, and I've seen all the big touristy attractions and everything, and I didn't really have any interest in doing that this time. Besides, I only had 3 days in the city, so I kind of just wanted to take it easy, do the things that I know I like, see some other things that are very particular to my interests that I haven't been able to do before, and see a couple friends who live there as well. So my mom and I took a bus from Washington, D.C. up to New York City, which was actually only like $5, by the way, which was absolutely amazing. And the bus dropped us off at Penn Station, so it was a quick ride to get to our hostel, which was in the Lower East Side. And I ended up getting a week-long Metro card, even though I was only going to be there for about 2.5 days, because the week-long Metro card costs $33, and I figured, in 2.5 days, I'm probably going to be going all around the city. I'm probably going to end up taking public transportation at least like 10 times. So I figured it would probably be worth it. So we arrived at the hostel and settled in. My mom kind of went off to do her touristy stuff because she likes doing that. But the first thing that I did, the very first thing, was I went to my favorite bookstore in the entire world called Blue Stockings. Now, I love this place. It's like the coolest combo of activism and literary goodness, and also has probably the only reasonably priced coffee in the entirety of New York City. They sell mugs of coffee for $1, which is amazing. So I spent a couple hours there and just read some books and enjoyed the vibes. So then after that, I ended up hanging out with a friend from college, and I made him go to a vegan cafe with me in the, I think, Upper West Side, so it was like really expensive, but it was pretty good, so whatever. And then to make up for the very expensive dinner, we ended up going to some really sketchy dive bar near his apartment in Brooklyn, which I think the prices kind of ended up canceling out, and it was a reasonably priced night. And so then after that, I headed home for the night. The next day, I woke up kind of late and started the day off with a fancy coffee from a shop down the street from my hostel. Then while I was at that coffee shop, somebody suggested a vegan pastry shop that was down the street. So then I ended up going to that, and it was also very expensive, but it was like a, I don't know, like vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, and I think nut-free facility. So it was good. So I wandered around a bit, looked at the street art and the pigeons and whatever else was happening, and I wandered into a couple stores that caught my eye. Then I took some public transportation over to Chelsea Market, which is one of my favorite places to just kind of hang out. And it's kind of weird because, yeah, it is a market, but it's also like one of the only places in New York where I don't feel aggressively marketed to, if you know what I mean. Like, everything's so branded in New York, but I feel like Chelsea Market, it just kind of feels a little more authentic, and it feels a little less pushy. So that's one of my favorite places to go in New York, and to just like waste some time and not be constantly barraged by advertisements for products that feature naked women. New York, baby! So after the Chelsea Market, I walked along the High Wire thing, which has a lot of really cool murals and sculptures and stuff that's like just kind of fun to look at. And even though it was December, it was like surprisingly good weather. So thanks, global warming. After that, I went to get another coffee, and I got in the jolly Christmas spirit. And then I went to Central Park to see the Strawberry Fields, which, if you don't know, is a tribute to John Lennon. It's not exactly in the same spot, but it's across the street from where he was when he got shot and killed, right outside of his apartment. It was so like stereotypically sad girl aesthetic. I literally like sat on the floor in front of this memorial, put my headphones in, started listening to Imagine on repeat, and was just crying for like half an hour. Because, okay, listen, on top of it being just an objectively beautiful song, the song Imagine is genuinely just so important to me. Like, okay, I know that the 60s hippie movement had a lot of issues, but I have always just really connected with the central tenets of it. I even remember when I was really young, and both of my parents are conservatives, so I was kind of raised to be right-leaning, and I remember listening to Imagine by John Lennon and being like, wait, this guy's a communist. And then I listened to it again, and I was hearing like, no possessions, like the world will be as one. I was like, wait, I'm a communist. So honestly, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that Imagine by John Lennon was a very significant political awakening for me. And it really just, to this day, it means so much to me, because not only does it exemplify all of these values of love and support and brotherhood of man, like all of these ideas that I really love, but then also, I didn't explain this very well, but basically what I was trying to say is that listening to Imagine helps me remember that the end goal is always peace and love, and instead of fighting and getting angry, I should be focusing on inviting people to imagine a better world with me and try to be a little more empathetic and bringing people in. And I don't know, it also just, as cheesy as it sounds, makes me feel like I'm not alone in this whole activism thing. It helps me remember that there is a whole rich history to a lot of these activist movements. And yeah, obviously a flawed history. John Lennon wasn't perfect, and I'm not trying to say he was, and I'm not trying to say that Imagine should be like the be-all, end-all of leftist discourse. Like, obviously there are a lot of issues with the song as well. Although it is apparently still radical enough to make people like Ben Shapiro angry, which Big Joel did a fantastic analysis of, which I'll link down below. I don't know. It just has always held a very special place in my heart. So it really, really, really meant a lot to me to spend that time at Strawberry Fields just thinking and reflecting, and oh, yeah, it was good. It was cathartic. Crying in the rain. Anyway, moving on. After I had recovered from that emotional catharsis, I passed by this car, which made me very happy. Then I started heading south and ended up near Times Square, and I had like an hour to kill before my next thing. So I walked through Times Square for a second, then went up to Bryant Park, which had like a cute little Christmas market thing. And then I figured, you know, while I'm here and while I have time to kill, might as well see what all the fuss is about the Rockefeller Center. So I went there, spent like 10 minutes there, because honestly it's very overrated, and I'm not just saying that to be like well, it's so overrated, like I don't know, it just doesn't spark joy, I guess. Not my cup of tea. Speaking of, then I went to get another coffee. Then I walked by the Daily Show theater just to try to absorb any residual Jon Stewart energy. And then I went to the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is an improv theater where some of my favorite women comedians kind of got their professional start. So it was just kind of cool to see a show on the same stage that those women were on a couple years ago. And as an added bonus, the card reader wasn't working, so the front desk woman just gave me a free ticket, which was really nice. So shout out to her. So after that, it was getting kind of late, but I didn't want to go home yet, so I decided to go to a gay bar by myself. But my phone died during the bus ride there, and then the bus didn't take the route that my phone had said that it would. So I ended up just getting shoved off the bus at a random stop in the middle of New York by myself at night with a dead phone. No idea where I am. Great. So what did I do? I went to a coffee shop and I charged my phone and I figured out where I was. And then I eventually made it to my original destination, which was a bar called Cubbyhole, which I had never actually been to before, even though it's apparently like one of the most popular LGBT bar, club, hangout spots. So when I got to Cubbyhole, I don't know what it was. If it was just like me being tired after a day of walking around, or just the fact that I was by myself, or the fact that it was a cash-only bar and I didn't have any cash. I was just kind of not as outgoing as I typically would be. So for the first like 10 minutes or so, I was just kind of sitting in the corner by myself like, I want to be having fun. Then I eventually put on my big girl pants and I literally walked up to this group of girls who were dancing and I just said like, hey, I don't know anybody here and you guys seem like you're having the most fun. Can I join you? And this girl like took my hands and started dancing. So I don't know. It ended up still being super fun. It was still a really good night, which is just a testament to Cubbyhole and how like kind and open and fun of an environment it is. But unfortunately, I eventually had to go home because it was getting kind of late and I had to be up early the next morning to pick up my bus tickets. Now, I did not expect to have to be up as early as I ended up being up because at about 6 a.m. our fire alarm starts ringing in the hostel and everyone in the room is just like, is this a drill? Like, what's going on? And then we started smelling smoke and we were like, oh shit, this is not a drill. Our hostel is on fire. And my mom and I are on like one of the highest floors. So at 6 a.m., half asleep, half dressed, everyone like flooded down. But it ended up okay. It was just like a dryer had caught fire or something. I don't know. It was something small and it was contained, so nobody was hurt or anything, but it was just not the best way to start my last day in New York. So I went back to sleep after that and then I had to wake up at 8 a.m. to go to Brooklyn and pick up my bus tickets for the Greyhound. Then there was this whole big issue with the Greyhound, which, by the way, Greyhound just kind of generally sucks. I've never had a seamless experience with Greyhound. There's always something. But honestly, they're like one of the only affordable ways to get from one place to another place in America. So guess I'm going to keep on using Greyhound even though they suck. They essentially wasted like 2 hours of my life with all of that stuff. At that point, I was just tired and grumpy and cold because it was snowing, which is like really pretty looking at the videos now, but at the time I was just like, So to cheer myself up, I did what any reasonable person would do and I went to my favorite coffee shop. So this place I found about a year ago and I make sure every single time I come to New York City, I make sure to go there. And it's this cute little literally underground place that is just, it's decorated so cute. It's amazing. Everyone there is so sweet. Okay, call me a dumb millennial, but my avocado toast and cardamom latte were amazing and made me very happy. So I love it. And I'm not gonna apologize for it. I love it. That place was in Greenwich Village, so I ended up just kind of walking around there a little bit more just because I love being there. Walked past Stonewall, of course, paid my respects. And then funnily enough, actually, while I was walking around Greenwich Village, I ran into a friend from college who was on the exec board of our LGBT organization with me for a year, which was just like a really funny coincidence. But anyway. Then I passed by a music store that caught my eye, so I went in for a second, and it was so cool. So, like, the entire bottom floor was just instruments, like pianos and guitars and other stringed instruments, but then also, like, really interesting percussion stuff, things I'd never seen before. And then somebody started playing, I don't even know what this instrument is, but he was playing it and it was really good, so that was really cool. And then the top floor of that music store was a bunch of records. Now, okay, every time I go into a record store, there are 3 things that I look for. Okay, number 1 is Bikini Kill albums. Number 2 is Sleater-Kinney albums. And number 3 is this one particular album by a band called The Roaches. And I am not kidding you. I have been looking for this album for over a year in every single record store I go to. You can ask any of my friends. They all know that when I go to a record store, this is what I'm looking for. So, of course, when I went to this music store, I was flipping through all of their records looking for it, and I didn't find it. But serendipitously, I think I'm using that word right, there was another record store pretty close by. So I was like, whatever, I'll check. Why not? So I go into there, and I ask the owner, hey, do you have this album? And he goes, I think so. It looks familiar. Maybe let me check in the back. So he goes to check in the back, and I'm just kind of flipping through the ones in the front, and I find Bikini Kill, Yeah, with Huggy Bear, which is like a really good vintage record, but I was like, I don't need it. And the shop owner comes back, and he's like, sorry, I couldn't find it. But let me check again. I think I have it. Let me check again. So he goes back to check again, and I'm flipping through the records again, and I find Sleater-Kinney, which, okay, yeah, I do really love them, but also this was the most recent album, so I was like, whatever, I don't need it. Comes back, and he's like, I'm sorry, I thought I had it. And then he goes, no, you know what, I'm gonna try one more time. So he goes back, he's checking, flipping through all the albums. I find some other stuff I like, but whatever, I'm not gonna buy it. And he comes out, and he has it. He has The Roaches. A year of searching, and this random place that I wasn't even really expecting to end up at, I finally found it. So I plopped down my credit card and made the best $30 purchase of my entire life. And honestly, after that point, I was like, whatever. Like, all of this bad stuff that happened earlier today, whatever. Today's the fantastic day. Today's the best day of my life. I was so excited. I was so happy. So, of course, after that, I celebrated my victory with a coffee. With homemade almond milk, actually, which was really good. Then I went back up near Central Park to meet up with a friend from college, and we got to hang out for a couple hours, and then I lost track of time and then had to literally run across the city with my suitcase and everything to make it to my bus up to Montreal, and I literally got there with 5 minutes to spare, and I whipped out my passport. Then I got on the bus and left New York City. I mean, honestly, I think all in all, during this trip, I got the best of both worlds in every way, shape, and form. I got to do all the touristy Christmas stuff while I had time to kill in Times Square. And then I also got to do all of the stuff that really mattered to me. And honestly, I think that's the best part of solo travel, is that you get to call the shots and you don't have to compromise. If you want to do it, you can do it. And really the only negative part of solo travel is that you can sometimes get lonely, but since I had some friends to meet up with in the city, and since I got to go to that bar and meet some other people, I wasn't even really feeling lonely at all. So really, yeah, it was a pretty ideal trip despite the small setbacks. And now I just can't wait to go back to New York again, because I love that place so much, and now I have a couple more favorite shops and stuff to hang out in. I guess that's all I really have to say. I don't know how to end videos. Goodbye.